Welcome to History Teller YT, where we take deep dives into the most fascinating and transformative events in history. Today, we're embarking on an expansive journey through one of the most significant and dynamic stories of our time, the rise of China, from ancient dynasties to global power. In this series, we explore China's rich past, starting from its ancient civilizations to its present-day position as an economic and geopolitical powerhouse. Through this journey, you'll uncover the events, decisions, and forces that shaped China's remarkable transformation over millennia. The historical insights provided here are not just about China's past, but they also offer a glimpse into the present challenges and opportunities that the country faces as it continues to influence the global stage. The BRI is an ambitious infrastructure and investment project that aims to connect Asia, Africa, and Europe through a vast network of roads, railways, ports, and airports. The initiative is designed to enhance trade and promote economic development in countries along the Silk Road, which is a reference to the ancient trade routes that once connected China to the Mediterranean. The BRI is seen as a way for China to expand its influence globally by financing infrastructure projects in developing countries, often in exchange for favorable trade agreements and access to natural resources. Through the BRI, China has invested billions of dollars in countries across Asia, Africa, and Europe. These investments have provided much-needed infrastructure in many countries, helping to spur economic growth. However, the initiative has also faced criticism. Some critics argue that the BRI is a form of economic imperialism, with China using its financial power to gain political influence over participating countries. Others have pointed to the increasing debt burdens that some countries have incurred as a result of Chinese loans. Despite these concerns, the Belt and Road Initiative has become a key part of China's strategy to expand its economic and political influence worldwide. In addition to the BRI, China's growing global influence has been marked by its increasing role in international institutions. China is a member of major organizations such as the United Nations, the World Trade Organization, and the International Monetary Fund. It has also become an active player in global economic discussions, including through the G20 and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. China's global economic presence has reshaped global trade patterns and has had a significant impact on the world economy. As China's economic power has grown, so too has its political influence. The country has become more assertive in its foreign policy, particularly in regions like the South China Sea and in its relations with the United States. China's increasing role in global affairs has reshaped the geopolitical landscape, and its rise has sparked debates about the future of global power dynamics. With its growing economic might, China is now positioned as a central player on the world stage, and its ambitions continue to shape the future of global politics. In the early 2010s, China entered a new phase of leadership under President Xi Jinping, who ascended to power in 2012. Xi, who had been groomed for leadership through his family's ties to the Communist Party and his experience working in various governmental roles, introduced a new vision for China, famously encapsulated in the idea of the Chinese dream. The Chinese dream, as articulated by Xi, is a vision of national rejuvenation, prosperity, and a stronger global presence. It emphasizes restoring China to its rightful place at the center of global affairs, while ensuring that the benefits of China's economic growth are felt by all citizens, thus securing domestic stability and international prestige. Xi's vision for the Chinese dream is grounded in both economic growth and national pride. As China's economy continued to grow, Xi emphasized the need for the nation to focus not just on increasing GDP, but on elevating the living standards of its people and fostering a society that is both politically stable and culturally unified. The Chinese dream is in many ways a continuation of the previous leadership's economic reforms. but with a more explicit focus on ensuring that China's economic success is accompanied by a sense of national greatness and self-reliance. Under Xi, the Communist Party has worked to reaffirm its authority and legitimacy as the central governing force in China. While the country has become more integrated into the global economy, Xi has sought to strengthen the party's control over the political, economic, and cultural life of the nation. His administration has clamped down on corruption, while also asserting the centrality of Communist Party leadership in all aspects of Chinese life. As China enters the era of the Chinese dream, Xi's leadership marks a decisive break from the previous more pragmatic economic reforms in favor of more centralized, top-down control aimed at ensuring the long-term stability and prosperity of the nation. The concept of the Chinese dream has resonated with many Chinese citizens who are proud of the country's economic achievements and its growing influence on the global stage. However, it has also led to criticisms, particularly regarding political freedoms and the Communist Party's increasing grip on power. Xi's administration has been marked by a significant tightening of political control, particularly in the realms of free speech, press freedoms, and internet censorship. The Chinese dream, therefore, has become a dual-edged sword. While it promotes economic growth and national pride, it also serves as a justification for increased authoritarianism and reduced political openness. One of the defining features of Xi Jinping's leadership has been the expansion of the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, which began under his leadership in 2013. The BRI, an ambitious global infrastructure project aimed at linking China to countries across Asia, Africa, and Europe, reflects China's growing economic and geopolitical ambitions. The initiative, which seeks to build roads, railways, ports, and other infrastructure, is intended to create a new Silk Road, enhancing trade and investment flows between China and the world, while also promoting China's soft power and expanding its influence in developing regions. The BRI serves both economic and strategic purposes. Economically, it is a way for China to export its surplus capital and labor, facilitating growth in regions that are less developed while simultaneously benefiting China's own economy. The BRI is also seen as a means to secure China's access to key natural resources and markets. By financing infrastructure projects and fostering trade routes, China is positioning itself as the central hub of global trade in the 21st century. The initiative has already seen a significant number of projects completed, with countries such as Pakistan, Kenya, and Greece benefiting from Chinese investment in infrastructure. However, the BRI is also seen as a tool of China's geopolitical strategy. By providing loans and infrastructure assistance to countries in strategic regions, China is able to deepen its political and economic ties with these countries, thereby increasing its influence in global affairs. This has led some Western analysts to accuse China of using the BRI as a form of economic imperialism, with some developing countries taking on significant debt in exchange for Chinese investment. Critics argue that China's growing control over key infrastructure projects, such as ports and railways, could allow the Chinese government to exert leverage over these countries' foreign policies, especially in regions such as Africa and Central Asia. Despite these criticisms, the Belt and Road Initiative has become one of the most ambitious international development projects in history. It reflects China's vision of a future where it plays a central role in the global economy, as well as its determination to reshape international trade routes and institutions to reflect its growing influence. The BRI has sparked both admiration and apprehension among the international community, and its long-term impact on global geopolitics remains to be seen. While the BRI is designed to benefit China economically, it also carries significant geopolitical risks. The increasing dependence of BRI recipient countries on Chinese loans has raised concerns about the potential for debt trap diplomacy, where countries might struggle to repay China potentially resulting in the loss of strategic assets or political leverage. The project also faces challenges due to rising political tensions in some regions, such as the Middle East and South Asia, where China's growing influence may be met with resistance from other global powers, notably the United States and India. Nevertheless, the BRI remains central to China's strategy for global expansion, and its success or failure will significantly influence China's geopolitical standing in the coming decades. Alongside its economic growth and geopolitical ambitions, China has made significant strides in the field of technology and innovation. Over the past 2 decades, China has become a global leader in many cutting-edge technologies, from telecommunications and artificial intelligence to renewable energy and biotechnology. In particular, China's tech giants, such as Huawei, Tencent, and Alibaba, have risen to global prominence, challenging the dominance of American tech companies like Apple, Google, and Amazon. The rise of China as a technological powerhouse is a key aspect of Xi Jinping's vision for the Chinese dream. She has emphasized the importance of achieving self-reliance in technology, especially in critical fields such as semiconductors, telecommunications, and cybersecurity. In 2015, the Chinese government launched the Made in China 2025 initiative, which aimed to make China a global leader in advanced manufacturing and high-tech industries by promoting innovation, research and development, and technological independence. This initiative has seen heavy investments in sectors such as robotics, AI, and clean energy. The technological advancements in China have led to significant changes in global supply chains. China is now not only the world's largest manufacturing hub, but also a leader in the development of new technologies. The country has made massive investments in artificial intelligence, becoming one of the world's foremost developers of AI technology. Chinese companies are using AI in various fields, from healthcare and autonomous vehicles to finance and education. Additionally, China has become a world leader in the development of 5G technology, with companies like Huawei at the forefront of this global race. However, China's rapid rise in technology has sparked concern in the United States and other Western countries. The growing influence of Chinese tech companies, particularly in areas like 5G, has led to fears over national security and intellectual property theft. The U.S. has taken measures to limit China's access to critical technologies, such as the banning of Huawei from U.S. networks and restricting Chinese tech companies from accessing American-made semiconductor technology. The competition for technological supremacy has become one of the central points of tension between China and the West. Despite these challenges, China's technological ascent is a testament to the country's ambitious goals and its ability to transform itself into a global leader in innovation. The country's future in this arena will depend on its ability to navigate the complexities of international competition, intellectual property concerns, and domestic economic policies. As China continues to push for greater technological self-reliance, it will likely play an increasingly central role in shaping the global technological landscape. As China's economic power and geopolitical influence have grown in the 21st century, the world has increasingly turned its attention to its expanding role on the global stage. China's rise, which has been characterized by rapid economic growth, the establishment of the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, and a robust presence in international institutions, has fundamentally shifted global power dynamics. With a population of over 1.4 billion and a rapidly growing technological and industrial base, China is no longer just a regional power. It is one of the most influential actors in international politics, economics, and security. The United States, historically the dominant global superpower, has viewed China's rise with a mix of concern and competition. The U.S. is wary of China's growing military capabilities, particularly in the Asia-Pacific region, where Beijing has made territorial claims in the South China Sea. China's Belt and Road Initiative, which seeks to create infrastructure projects across Asia, Africa, and Europe, is viewed by some Western analysts as a form of debt trap diplomacy, where China extends loans to developing countries in exchange for political influence or access to resources. In this context, China's strategic use of its economic power to expand its influence has raised alarms in Washington, leading to a more confrontational approach in the form of trade wars, sanctions, and efforts to limit China's access to certain technologies. Another major challenge facing China's global ambitions is the growing rivalry with India. Both China and India, as the two largest and most populous countries in Asia, have long-standing geopolitical rivalries. Border disputes, economic competition, and regional influence have led to tensions, particularly in the contested region of Kashmir. The strategic competition between China and India has become increasingly evident, especially as China builds stronger ties with countries in South Asia, while India aligns itself with Western powers, including the US. The rivalry between these two powers has significant implications for the broader Asia-Pacific region, particularly in the context of China's expanding military presence in the region. Additionally, Europe has had a mixed response to China's rise. While China is an important trade partner for many European countries, the growing influence of Chinese companies, particularly in key infrastructure projects, has sparked concerns over national security and the protection of intellectual property. Some European countries have increasingly aligned with the US in pushing back against China's practices, particularly regarding its human rights record, its treatment of ethnic minorities like the Uyghurs in Xinjiang, and its crackdown on dissent in Hong Kong. In response, China has accused Western nations of meddling in its internal affairs, asserting that the country's rise should be seen as a legitimate and sovereign process rather than a threat. Despite these challenges, China's efforts to position itself as a leader in global governance and economic development are paying off. The country has increasingly become involved in international organizations such as the United Nations, the World Trade Organization, WTO, and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO, asserting its voice in global decision-making processes. Additionally, China has sought to reframe its image as a leader in global issues, such as climate change and sustainable development, positioning itself as a champion of multilateralism and a more equitable international order. The success of China's soft power initiatives, such as its cultural diplomacy, Confucius Institutes, and media outreach, has helped improve its global image, although it still faces significant skepticism from many parts of the world. While China's global ambitions have flourished, the country faces significant domestic challenges that threaten the stability of its political system and long-term economic success. One of the most pressing issues is the widening gap between China's urban and rural populations. While China's cities have boomed with rapid industrialization and modernization, rural areas have lagged behind. A growing income disparity between the wealthy urban elite and the rural poor has created significant social tensions. This inequality is particularly pronounced in China's vast western and central regions, which have not benefited as much from the economic reforms of the past few decades. The urban-rural divide is further exacerbated by the hukou system, China's household registration system, which has historically restricted rural citizens' access to social services, education, and healthcare in urban areas. Migrant workers, often from rural regions, have found jobs in the cities but struggle with limited access to basic services, housing, and social mobility. While China's government has made efforts to address these issues through targeted poverty reduction programs, the disparity between urban and rural areas remains a significant challenge for the country's development. In addition to economic inequality, China faces growing concerns over environmental sustainability. The rapid pace of industrialization has taken a heavy toll on the environment, leading to severe air and water pollution, deforestation, and the degradation of ecosystems. Cities like Beijing and Shanghai are notorious for their smog, and air quality has become a major health issue for millions of Chinese citizens. Water pollution, driven by industrial waste and agricultural runoff, has also threatened China's water supply, particularly in rural areas. These environmental issues are compounded by China's dependence on coal as a major energy source, which contributes to greenhouse gas emissions and global climate change. The Chinese government has recognized the need to address environmental concerns and has made efforts to promote clean energy, reduce carbon emissions, and shift to a more sustainable development model. China is the world's largest producer of solar panels and has invested heavily in renewable energy sources such as wind and solar power. However, the transition to a green economy remains a work in progress, as China's reliance on coal and heavy industry makes it difficult to meet ambitious environmental targets. In the face of these challenges, the Chinese government has sought to balance its pursuit of economic growth with the need to protect the environment and address the growing demands for sustainable development. The issue of political control is another domestic challenge that China faces. While the Communist Party has maintained a firm grip on power, the desire for greater political freedoms and civil liberties has not disappeared. In addition to economic inequality, China faces growing concerns over environmental sustainability. The rapid pace of industrialization has taken a heavy toll on the environment, leading to severe air and water pollution, deforestation, and the degradation of ecosystems. Cities like Beijing and Shanghai are notorious for their smog, and air quality has become a major health issue for millions of Chinese citizens. Water pollution, driven by industrial waste and agricultural runoff, has also threatened China's water supply, particularly in rural areas. These environmental issues are compounded by China's dependence on coal as a major energy source, which contributes to greenhouse gas emissions and global climate change. The Chinese government has recognized the need to address environmental concerns and has made efforts to promote clean energy, reduce carbon emissions, and shift to a more sustainable development model. China is the world's largest producer of solar panels and has invested heavily in renewable energy sources such as wind and solar power. However, the transition to a green economy remains a work in progress, as China's reliance on coal and heavy industry makes it difficult to meet ambitious environmental targets. In the face of these challenges, the Chinese government has sought to balance its pursuit of economic growth with the need to protect the environment and address the growing demands for sustainable development. The issue of political control is another domestic challenge that China faces. While the Communist Party has maintained a firm grip on power, the desire for greater political freedoms and civil liberties has not disappeared. In recent years, there have been growing calls for political reform, particularly among China's younger generations, who have benefited from the country's economic success, but are increasingly dissatisfied with the lack of political openness. Social media platforms, such as WeChat and Weibo, have provided a space for citizens to express their views, although the government's censorship and surveillance apparatus heavily monitor online activity. Despite these challenges, the Chinese Communist Party has continued to prioritize stability and control, using measures such as surveillance, censorship, and repression of dissent to maintain its authority. Xi Jinping's administration has overseen an expansion of the party's reach into all aspects of Chinese society, from education to the private sector. This has included efforts to strengthen ideological control, ensure loyalty to the party, and prevent any challenges to the political status quo. For many, this centralized control is seen as necessary to ensure the continued success of China's economic model. But for others, it represents a significant barrier to political reform and individual freedoms. As China moves forward into the 21st century, one of its most significant challenges is maintaining its technological ascendancy while ensuring that its technological development aligns with both national security interests and global competitiveness. China has made incredible strides in technology, particularly in the fields of telecommunications, artificial intelligence, and biotechnology. However, China's growing technological influence has also generated significant geopolitical tension, particularly with the United States and other Western nations, who view China's rise in tech as a threat to their own technological dominance. The competition in areas such as 5G technology, artificial intelligence, AI, and semiconductor manufacturing has become a focal point of the US-China rivalry. Chinese tech companies such as Huawei, Tencent, and Alibaba have emerged as global players, particularly in emerging markets. However, the rise of Chinese technological giants has also triggered a response from the West, with the U.S. leading efforts to limit Chinese access to critical technologies, citing national security risks. Huawei, in particular, has been at the center of these tensions, with the U.S. government accusing the company of having close ties to the Chinese government and of being a potential vehicle for espionage. China has made significant strides in developing its own advanced technology, with major investments in AI research, quantum computing, and autonomous vehicles. The country is also investing heavily in its space program, with China's space agency successfully landing a rover on the far side of the moon in 2019 and sending astronauts into space. Despite these successes, China remains heavily dependent on foreign technology for certain critical sectors, particularly in the semiconductor industry, which is crucial for everything from smartphones to military hardware. To address this dependence, the Chinese government has ramped up efforts to develop its own high-tech industries, with ambitious plans to dominate global markets in key areas such as artificial intelligence, biotechnology, and semiconductors. However, the race for technological innovation is a complex and costly endeavor. While China has made significant progress, it must overcome significant barriers in terms of intellectual property rights, cybersecurity, and its relations with other tech giants around the world. As China seeks to lead in technology and innovation, it faces both immense opportunities and risks. The global race for technological leadership will likely determine China's place in the future geopolitical order. If successful, China could reshape the global tech landscape, but if it falters, it could face significant setbacks in its efforts to maintain its rising global status. One of the key elements in China's continued rise on the global stage has been the strength and stability of the Communist Party of China, CPC, which has maintained a firm grip on power since its establishment in 1949. The party's ability to adapt to changing circumstances, especially during the post-Mao period of economic reform, has been crucial in its continued rule. However, this stability has come at the cost of political openness and civil liberties, creating tensions both within China and with the international community. The CPC's centralized control has allowed the country to avoid the political instability that has plagued many other nations undergoing rapid economic growth. But it has also led to criticism for its lack of democratic reforms and its heavy-handed approach to dissent. Xi Jinping, who assumed leadership of China in 2012, has worked to consolidate his power within the Communist Party and has overseen a further tightening of political control. Under his leadership, the Chinese government has cracked down on political dissidents, human rights activists, and those who challenge the Communist Party's authority. The most notable example of this has been the mass imprisonment of Uyghur Muslims in Xinjiang, where it is estimated that over 1 million Uyghurs have been detained in what China calls re-education camps. The Chinese government has justified these actions as necessary for combating extremism and terrorism, but international human rights organizations have condemned them as a violation of basic freedoms. She has also overseen an extensive anti-corruption campaign, which, while targeting real instances of corruption within the party, has also been used as a tool to eliminate political rivals and consolidate his own power. Many high-ranking officials have been purged or imprisoned as part of this campaign, further solidifying Xi's control over the party apparatus. In 2018, the Chinese constitution was amended to remove the two-term limit for the presidency, effectively allowing Xi to remain in power indefinitely. This move has been seen by some as an effort to cement his legacy and establish himself as China's most powerful leader since Mao Zedong. Despite these efforts to maintain control, there are underlying tensions within Chinese society that challenge the party's monopoly on power. Economic inequality, environmental degradation, and a growing demand for political freedoms are among the most significant challenges that China faces in the coming decades. While the Communist Party remains the central institution in Chinese politics, these internal tensions have the potential to undermine its authority, particularly as younger generations, who have benefited from economic growth but are increasingly dissatisfied with political repression, begin to assert their voices. As China's economy has grown and evolved over the past few decades, the country has undergone a significant shift from being primarily a manufacturing-based economy to one that increasingly emphasizes high-tech industries, services, and consumption. This transition has been at the heart of China's long-term economic strategy, which aims to move away from reliance on cheap labor and low-end manufacturing to become a leader in innovation, research, and development, R&D. The Chinese government has set ambitious goals to develop industries such as artificial intelligence, AI, biotechnology, and green energy, seeking to position China as a global leader in these cutting-edge fields. The push for innovation is part of the broader strategy outlined in the Made in China 2025 initiative, which focuses on developing domestic technological capabilities and reducing reliance on foreign imports, particularly in high-tech sectors such as semiconductors, aerospace, and robotics. China has already made significant strides in some of these areas, with major companies such as Huawei, Tencent, and Alibaba becoming global leaders in their respective fields. However, the country faces considerable challenges as it seeks to transition to a knowledge-based economy. One of the biggest obstacles to China's innovation-driven growth is the ongoing issue of intellectual property, IP, rights. While China has made progress in strengthening its IP laws and enforcing regulations, concerns about the theft of foreign technology remain a major point of contention between China and many Western countries, particularly the United States. U.S. companies, in particular, have long accused China of unfairly appropriating technology and demanding technology transfers as a condition of market access. These tensions were at the heart of the U.S.-China trade war that began in 2018, with the Trump administration imposing tariffs on Chinese goods in an effort to curb what it saw as China's unfair trade practices. Despite these challenges, China has continued to invest heavily in its technological sector. The government has provided substantial funding for research and development in areas such as AI and quantum computing, and China is making significant progress in areas like 5G technology, where companies like Huawei have become global leaders. In 2020, China became the world's largest patent filer, signaling its growing role as a center of technological innovation. The country is also making strides in green energy, with massive investments in solar and wind power and a commitment to achieving carbon neutrality by 2060. While China's economic model has been successful in driving growth, there are signs that it is reaching a tipping point. The country's rapid industrialization has led to significant environmental degradation, and its labor force is aging, which poses challenges for sustaining long-term growth. The transition to a more consumer-driven economy has also created challenges, particularly in terms of the unequal distribution of wealth. China's middle class has grown exponentially, but wealth inequality is a growing concern, especially as the country's wealthiest individuals and families consolidate their power. Additionally, China's reliance on an export-driven economy and cheap labor is being tested by rising labor costs and global economic uncertainty. Looking ahead, China's political and economic future will depend largely on how it manages the contradictions within its system. The Communist Party's continued control over political life, while providing stability, has led to increasing dissatisfaction among some sectors of society, particularly the younger generation. This generation, which has grown up in a time of economic prosperity, has been exposed to more information from the outside world and is increasingly pushing for greater political freedoms, particularly in the realm of speech and expression. The tightening of government control over the media, internet, and academic discourse has led to frustration among many who want to see political reforms that would allow for greater democratic participation. China's economic future, too, is uncertain. While the country has made remarkable progress in transitioning to a more innovation-driven economy, it still faces challenges in moving away from its dependence on manufacturing and exports. The country's demographic challenges, particularly its aging population, pose significant long-term risks for its economy. A shrinking workforce could lead to slower economic growth, as fewer workers will be available to fuel the expansion of China's industries. Additionally, China's growing debt levels, particularly at the local government level, could create financial instability if not managed properly. In terms of global influence, China's ambitions to reshape the international order are likely to continue, particularly as it seeks to expand its influence through initiatives like the Belt and Road Initiative and its increasing role in global institutions. However, China's rise has sparked concerns in the West, particularly in the U.S., with a growing rivalry between the two powers has led to trade wars, military tensions, and a broader geopolitical contest. The future of this competition will shape the global balance of power in the coming decades. Ultimately, China's political and economic model will need to evolve if it is to maintain its growth and stability. The government will need to address the domestic challenges of inequality, environmental sustainability, and political reform while continuing to navigate its complex relationship with the rest of the world. Whether China can successfully navigate these challenges and continue its rise as a global superpower remains to be seen, but its success or failure will have profound implications for the future of both China and the world. China's foreign policy has undergone significant changes over the past few decades, evolving from a relatively isolated and inward-looking stance to one of active engagement and assertiveness on the global stage. Under Mao Zedong, China's foreign policy was largely shaped by ideological considerations and a desire to promote revolution around the world. During the Cold War, China's foreign policy was characterized by its alignment with the Soviet Union, followed by a shift toward a more independent stance, particularly after the Sino-Soviet split in the 1960s. This period also saw China largely disconnected from the Western world. The opening of China to the outside world in the late 1970s, initiated by Deng Xiaoping, marked the beginning of a major shift in China's foreign policy. Deng's economic reforms and the decision to open up China to international trade and investment laid the foundation for the country's modern foreign policy. China moved from isolation to becoming an active member of the global economy, seeking economic ties with countries worldwide, especially in the West. However, this new approach was still underpinned by China's pursuit of sovereignty and the protection of its interests, particularly in regard to issues such as Taiwan, Tibet, and Hong Kong, as well as its long-standing concerns over territorial disputes in the South China Sea. In the 1990s and early 2000s, China's economic rise allowed it to become more engaged in global affairs. The country sought to join international organizations, such as the World Trade Organization, WTO, in 2001, to facilitate its integration into the global economy. As China's economic power grew, so too did its geopolitical influence. The peaceful rise strategy, championed by leaders like Hu Jintao, emphasized China's goal of becoming a major global power without threatening the existing world order. This approach was focused on building strong diplomatic and economic relationships, while avoiding military confrontation with the West, particularly the United States. Under Xi Jinping, China's foreign policy has taken a more assertive turn. She has promoted the idea of the Chinese dream and articulated a vision of national rejuvenation, which includes projecting China's power on the global stage and redefining international norms and institutions. Xi's leadership has been marked by a more aggressive approach to foreign affairs, particularly in the Asia-Pacific region, where China has pursued territorial claims in the South China Sea, increased its military presence, and exerted pressure on neighboring countries. This has been coupled with China's growing economic influence, as seen in its global infrastructure projects through the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, which aims to strengthen China's economic ties with countries across Asia, Africa, and Europe. One of the most ambitious components of China's foreign policy under Xi Jinping has been the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, launched in 2013. The BRI is a multi-trillion-dollar global infrastructure development project designed to enhance trade, investment, and economic cooperation across Eurasia, Africa, and beyond. The initiative, which aims to recreate the ancient Silk Road, involves building roads, railways, ports, and energy pipelines, as well as promoting greater economic connectivity among countries along the route. Through the BRI, China is seeking to establish itself as the central economic hub of Asia and beyond, with a network of partners that are dependent on China for investment, trade, and economic growth. The BRI has become a cornerstone of Xi Jinping's foreign policy, as it allows China to expand its influence and strengthen ties with developing countries that are in need of infrastructure and investment. By offering loans, financial assistance, and technical expertise, China has been able to increase its influence in regions like Africa, Central Asia, and Southeast Asia. Many countries have embraced the BRI, seeing it as an opportunity to boost their economies and improve infrastructure. However, the initiative has also faced criticism and scrutiny from both Western countries and other global powers. Critics argue that the BRI is a form of debt trap diplomacy, where countries become indebted to China for financing large-scale infrastructure projects and risk losing control over key assets if they are unable to repay their loans. For instance, Sri Lanka's lease of the Hambantota port to China for 99 years in 2017 has been viewed as a controversial example of this alleged debt trap diplomacy. Similarly, other countries, including Pakistan, Malaysia, and Kenya, have faced challenges in repaying Chinese loans for BRI projects, leading to concerns over China's growing control over key infrastructure in these countries. Despite these concerns, China continues to expand the BRI and has invested billions of dollars in projects across the world. The initiative has also helped solidify China's position as a key player in global trade, particularly in regions such as Africa and South Asia, where it has positioned itself as an alternative to Western-dominated trade networks. The BRI is not just an economic initiative. It is also a geopolitical strategy. By financing infrastructure projects and gaining influence over key economic and political sectors in participating countries, China aims to expand its global power and reshape international trade routes. The BRI also serves as a way for China to project its political and cultural influence around the world, often through the establishment of Confucius Institutes and other cultural diplomacy programs. The expansion of China's global influence through the BRI has positioned the country as a leader in shaping the future of international trade and geopolitics. As China's global influence has expanded, so too has its military capabilities. China has made significant strides in modernizing its military, which has become a key component of its foreign policy and a source of increasing concern for its neighbors and the United States. Under Xi Jinping's leadership, the Chinese military has undergone a series of reforms aimed at increasing its power and readiness. These reforms include modernizing the People's Liberation Army, PLA, enhancing its technological capabilities, and expanding its presence in the Asia-Pacific region. One of the most visible signs of China's military expansion is its growing presence in the South China Sea. The Chinese government has aggressively pursued territorial claims in the region, which is home to some of the world's busiest shipping lanes and has vast undersea natural resources. China has constructed military outposts on artificial islands in the Spratly and Paracel Islands, despite competing claims from several other countries, including Vietnam, the Philippines, and Malaysia. The United States, which has long had a security presence in the Asia-Pacific region, has expressed concern over China's militarization of the South China Sea and its increasing assertiveness in the region. China's growing military presence is not limited to the South China Sea. The country has also increased its military spending and developed advanced technologies, such as hypersonic missiles, stealth fighters, and advanced naval assets. China's military modernization is seen as a response to its desire to protect its interests and assert its influence in the region, particularly as it faces challenges from the United States and its allies, who maintain a significant military presence in the Asia-Pacific. China's increasing military capabilities have led to concerns in Washington, which has sought to strengthen its alliances with countries like Japan, South Korea, and Australia in response to China's growing influence. In addition to regional security concerns, China's military modernization has also raised questions about its global ambitions. China's increasing defense, spending, and expansion of its military presence have led some analysts to view the country as a rising military superpower, capable of projecting power beyond its borders. The growing strength of the PLA has prompted some to question whether China's military buildup is intended solely for regional security or if it is part of a broader strategy to challenge U.S. global dominance and reshape the international security order. China's military expansion has also led to tensions with its neighbors, particularly India. The two countries have long had a contentious relationship, marked by border disputes and military clashes. In recent years, tensions between the two countries have escalated, particularly along their shared border in the Himalayas. The rivalry between China and India is likely to play a significant role in shaping the geopolitical landscape of the Asia-Pacific region, with both countries vying for regional influence. In recent years, China has experienced a technological revolution, positioning itself as a global leader in many fields ranging from telecommunications to artificial intelligence, AI, and renewable energy. The country's rapid ascent to technological prominence has been fueled by a combination of state-driven industrial policy, a massive domestic market, and significant investments in education and research. The technological advancements made by Chinese companies like Huawei, Alibaba, Tencent, and Baidu have catapulted China to the forefront of the global technology race, challenging established players like the United States and Europe. One of the cornerstones of China's technological rise has been its focus on manufacturing and the rapid development of digital infrastructure. The country's Made in China 2025 initiative, launched in 2015, outlined ambitious goals to make China a global leader in high-tech industries, including robotics, aerospace, renewable energy, and information technology. The initiative emphasized the importance of reducing China's reliance on foreign technology, particularly in critical sectors like semiconductors and telecommunications equipment, and instead investing in homegrown innovation. A key player in this push for technological dominance has been Huawei, one of the world's largest telecommunications equipment and consumer electronics companies. Huawei has become a global leader in 5G technology, with its equipment being used in numerous countries around the world. The company has also made significant strides in smartphone production, challenging the dominance of Apple and Samsung. However, Huawei's success has come with significant controversy, particularly regarding concerns over security and its close ties to the Chinese government. The United States has led a global campaign to limit Huawei's access to Western markets, citing potential national security risks. Despite this, Huawei remains a dominant force in global telecommunications, particularly in emerging markets, and continues to drive innovation in areas like AI and cloud computing. In addition to Huawei, other Chinese tech giants like Alibaba and Tencent have reshaped the global digital economy. Alibaba's e-commerce platform, which operates both domestically and internationally, has become a critical player in the global retail sector, rivaling Amazon in many markets. Tencent, with its popular WeChat messaging app and stakes in a wide range of technology and entertainment ventures, has made significant inroads into industries like gaming, social media, and digital payments. These companies represent China's growing influence in the global digital landscape as they expand their reach into markets previously dominated by Western firms. China's success in technology is not just about individual companies, but also about the country's broader push to create an environment conducive to technological growth. The government has heavily invested in education, with a focus on science, technology, engineering and mathematics, STEM, fields, producing a large pool of skilled workers who are driving the country's innovation. Furthermore, the Chinese government has prioritized the development of high-tech infrastructure, including the rollout of 5G networks and the expansion of data centers across the country. This combination of government policy, technological expertise, and private sector innovation has enabled China to catch up to, and in many areas surpass, its competitors in the global technology race. China's rise as a global tech power has significant implications for the global economy and international relations. As China's technological prowess continues to grow, it is increasingly competing with the United States and other Western nations for leadership in critical industries like AI, telecommunications, and renewable energy. This competition has the potential to reshape global trade patterns, geopolitical alliances, and the future of technological development. One of the most significant aspects of China's tech dominance is its ability to set standards for new technologies. For example, in the case of 5G, China has taken the lead in building out the necessary infrastructure and has positioned itself to set global standards for the technology. This has led to a new front in the technological Cold War between China and the United States. The U.S. government has expressed concern that China's control over 5G networks could give Beijing unprecedented access to sensitive information and allow it to exert influence over countries that adopt Chinese technology. As a result, the U.S. has pressured its allies to exclude Huawei from their 5G networks, leading to a global debate about the balance between security concerns and the benefits of using advanced Chinese technology. In addition to 5G, China's ambitions in AI and quantum computing are also reshaping the global technological landscape. China has made significant strides in developing AI applications for industries like healthcare, transportation, and finance. The country's use of AI in areas like facial recognition and surveillance has raised concerns about privacy and human rights, particularly in light of the Chinese government's extensive surveillance state. China has also made major investments in quantum computing, positioning itself as a future leader in this cutting-edge field. These advancements not only give China a competitive edge in the technology sector, but also have implications for global security as countries around the world seek to develop their own capabilities in these critical areas. China's technological dominance is also reshaping the global economy. The country's vast domestic market, which is home to over 1.4 billion people, provides a massive consumer base for tech products and services. This has made China an attractive destination for foreign companies looking to expand their operations, while also providing Chinese firms with the opportunity to compete globally. As China continues to grow as a technological powerhouse, it is likely to challenge Western companies for dominance in a wide range of industries, including digital payments, e-commerce, entertainment, and even space exploration. However, China's technological rise also comes with significant risks. As the country becomes more integrated into the global tech ecosystem, it faces increasing scrutiny over issues like cybersecurity, intellectual property theft, and human rights violations. Western countries, particularly the United States, are increasingly wary of China's growing influence in the tech sector and have taken steps to limit the access of Chinese companies to Western markets. The U.S. has imposed tariffs, sanctions, and export restrictions on Chinese tech companies, particularly Huawei, in an effort to curb China's technological rise. These measures have sparked a trade war between the U.S. and China, with both sides seeking to protect their technological advantages and market share. In response to external pressures and the desire to reduce dependence on foreign technology, China has focused on achieving greater technological self-reliance. The Chinese government has identified innovation as a key priority for the country's continued development, recognizing that technological leadership is crucial to China's long-term economic and geopolitical ambitions. The Made in China 2025 initiative, which was launched in 2015, aims to make China a global leader in high-tech industries, such as semiconductors, robotics, and clean energy, by promoting domestic innovation and reducing reliance on foreign technology. One of the key pillars of China's strategy for technological self-reliance is the development of a robust domestic semiconductor industry. China has long been dependent on foreign companies, such as Intel and TSMC, for its semiconductor needs. However, the Chinese government has invested heavily in research and development to create a domestic semiconductor industry capable of meeting the country's needs. While China has made progress in this area, it still faces challenges in competing with global leaders in semiconductor manufacturing. In 2020, the U.S. government imposed sanctions on Chinese tech giant Huawei, limiting its access to key semiconductor components, further underscoring China's vulnerability in this critical sector. In addition to semiconductors, China is focusing on other key technologies, such as artificial intelligence, AI, quantum computing, and biotechnology. The government has created policies and incentives to encourage innovation in these sectors, including funding research and development, creating industry-specific standards, and providing support for startups and tech companies. The goal is to make China a global leader in cutting-edge technologies and to reduce its dependence on foreign firms. However, achieving self-reliance in these areas is a long-term challenge that will require continued investment in education, research, and infrastructure. While China's push for technological self-reliance is essential to its economic future, it also presents challenges. Innovation is a complex and costly process that requires not only substantial financial resources, but also a culture of creativity and risk-taking. The Chinese government has made significant progress in fostering an environment conducive to innovation, but there are still concerns about intellectual property protection, bureaucratic inefficiencies, and a lack of a robust legal framework for innovation. Despite these obstacles, China's commitment to technological self-reliance and innovation remains a central component of its long-term strategy to reshape the global tech landscape. One of the key factors behind the Chinese Communist Party's CCP continued rule over the country is its ability to maintain social stability, a central tenet of its governance. The party has prioritized maintaining order and avoiding the kind of political unrest that has destabilized many other countries undergoing rapid economic transformation. China's success in lifting millions out of poverty and transforming into an economic powerhouse has granted the CCP significant legitimacy among its population. Yet, the country faces growing social tensions and challenges that could threaten its stability in the future. China's social control mechanisms are a crucial aspect of the party's ability to maintain stability. The Chinese government has implemented a sophisticated system of surveillance and censorship that enables the state to monitor the activities of its citizens both online and offline. The rise of the internet and social media in China, which has enabled millions of Chinese citizens to engage with the outside world and access a range of information, has raised new challenges for the government. To maintain control, the CCP has implemented extensive measures to monitor the internet, including the infamous Great Firewall, which blocks foreign websites and censors content that is deemed politically sensitive. The government's use of surveillance technologies, including facial recognition software and internet tracking, has grown exponentially in recent years. In major cities like Beijing and Shanghai, cameras are installed everywhere, from street corners to public transport, creating a digital panopticon where citizens are constantly monitored. While these measures are framed as essential for maintaining security, they have raised concerns among human rights organizations about privacy violations and the extent of government control over personal freedoms. The Chinese government has also used surveillance to stifle dissent, particularly in regions like Xinjiang, where Uyghur Muslims and other minority groups have been subjected to intensive monitoring, detention, and forced labor under the guise of counterterrorism efforts. The CCP's control over social media platforms, both domestic and foreign, is also a key tool for maintaining political stability. Popular platforms like WeChat, Weibo, and TikTok are tightly regulated and censored by the government. Content that challenges the legitimacy of the CCP or promotes political dissent is quickly removed or blocked. While these actions have helped the CCP suppress criticism, they have also led to growing resentment among segments of the population who feel that their ability to express their views is being restricted. This tension between the government's desire for control and the increasing demand for free expression is one of the central challenges that China faces as it moves forward into the 21st century. While China has seen remarkable economic progress over the past few decades, particularly since the economic reforms initiated by Deng Xiaoping, the country faces emerging social challenges that could impact the CCP's ability to maintain control in the future. One of the most significant challenges is the generational divide. Younger generations in China have grown up in an era of unprecedented economic growth, with access to information, higher standards of living, and exposure to global cultural trends. These changes have led to shifts in attitudes and expectations, especially among China's urban middle class. Younger Chinese are increasingly dissatisfied with the political system, feeling disconnected from the country's authoritarian government and its control over virtually all aspects of life. While the CCP remains popular among older generations who remember the hardships of the Cultural Revolution and the era of Mao, younger Chinese have different expectations. Many of them are highly educated, well-traveled, and more open to ideas of personal freedom and individual expression. This younger generation is often more likely to embrace ideas of democracy, environmental sustainability, and personal rights than their elders. The tension between the younger generation's aspirations for more freedom and the CCP's control over political expression is a significant challenge for the party. Furthermore, the government's approach to censorship and surveillance has led to a sense of frustration and alienation among younger people. Although social media is widely used in China, it is heavily controlled, and the government's intervention in online discourse has led many to seek alternative ways to express themselves. The growing use of virtual private networks, VPNs, to bypass the Great Firewall, and the rise of underground social media platforms are indicative of the increasing resistance to the party's attempts at total control. Despite this, the Chinese government remains resolute in its commitment to maintaining social stability, and it continues to heavily regulate online content, ensuring that dissent remains marginalized. Another critical aspect of the generational divide is the changing nature of the Chinese economy. The rapid rise of China's middle class has created a generation of individuals who are more focused on personal prosperity and lifestyle improvements than on political ideology. Many young Chinese citizens are more concerned with issues such as career success, housing, and quality of life than with the broader political goals espoused by the government. This shift in priorities, combined with the increased exposure to global culture and information, is reshaping public sentiment in China and could lead to greater demands for reform in the future. As China's economic growth has continued, the country has also faced significant environmental challenges. The rapid industrialization that fueled the country's rise has come at a steep environmental cost. Air pollution, water scarcity, deforestation, and the depletion of natural resources are among the most pressing issues confronting China today. The environmental consequences of China's growth have led to significant health problems, particularly in urban areas, and have sparked a growing awareness of the need for sustainable development. The Chinese government has acknowledged these challenges and has made efforts to address them. In recent years, China has implemented stricter environmental regulations and has committed to reducing its carbon emissions. In 2020, President Xi Jinping announced that China would aim to achieve carbon neutrality by 2060, a bold pledge that is part of the country's broader plan to transition to a greener economy. This commitment to environmental sustainability is not just a matter of domestic policy. It is also tied to China's growing role as a global leader in climate change mitigation. China has made significant investments in renewable energy, particularly in solar and wind power, and is now the world's largest producer of solar panels and wind turbines. The country has also made strides in electric vehicle, EV, production, with companies like BYD and NIO positioning themselves as major players in the global EV market. Additionally, China has been investing in the development of electric public transportation networks, including buses and trains, as part of its efforts to reduce air pollution and dependence on fossil fuels. However, the road to sustainable development is fraught with challenges. China's industrial sector remains heavily reliant on coal, which is the largest source of energy in the country. Despite significant investments in renewable energy, coal still accounts for a large portion of the country's energy mix. Moreover, China's rapid urbanization and the construction of new cities and infrastructure continue to put pressure on the environment. Water scarcity remains a critical issue, particularly in northern China, where large-scale agricultural production and industrial activities compete for limited water resources. The country's environmental challenges are compounded by the need to balance economic growth with environmental protection, a delicate task that will require significant policy changes and technological innovation. Addressing these environmental challenges will be crucial for China's long-term economic stability and global standing. As the world's largest emitter of greenhouse gases, China has a pivotal role to play in the fight against climate change. Its success or failure in transitioning to a more sustainable economy will have global ramifications, influencing international climate negotiations and the future of global environmental policy. One of the most contentious geopolitical issues that China faces is its territorial claims in the South China Sea. This region is not only strategically important due to its proximity to key shipping lanes, but it is also believed to be rich in natural resources, including oil, gas, and fisheries. China claims nearly the entire South China Sea, a position that overlaps with territorial claims by several Southeast Asian nations, including the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, and Brunei. This has led to tensions and disputes over control of islands, and maritime territories. China's actions in the South China Sea, particularly its construction of military installations on artificial islands, have drawn widespread criticism from its neighbors and the international community. The United States and other Western countries, including the European Union, have voiced concerns about China's militarization of the region and its impact on freedom of navigation. The U.S. Navy has regularly conducted freedom of navigation operations, FONOPs, in the South China Sea, challenging China's territorial claims and asserting that the region should remain open to international shipping. In response, China has consistently defended its actions as legitimate, asserting that it has historical rights to the waters and territories it claims. The Chinese government views its presence in the South China Sea as essential for national security and economic interests. The region is vital for China's energy security, as much of the country's oil imports pass through the South China Sea. Furthermore, China has sought to expand its regional influence through investments in infrastructure and economic partnerships, especially with smaller countries in Southeast Asia, in exchange for support on the South China Sea issue. While China's stance has become more assertive, it has also faced significant diplomatic challenges. The 2016 ruling by an international tribunal in The Hague, which rejected China's claims to much of the South China Sea, was a blow to Beijing's position. China rejected the ruling, and tensions with the Philippines, which brought the case before the tribunal, have continued. Despite these challenges, China has maintained its claims through economic, military, and diplomatic means, and its presence in the South China Sea has grown stronger in recent years. The situation in the South China Sea is not only a regional issue, but also a global one. Many countries that rely on free passage through the waterways, including the US, Japan, and Australia, have a vested interest in ensuring that the South China Sea remains open and accessible for international trade. The ongoing dispute remains one of the most significant sources of tension between China and the West, as well as within the Asia-Pacific region. In recent years, China has pursued an ambitious foreign policy strategy centered around the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, which is aimed at reshaping global trade and infrastructure. Launched in 2013, the BRI is a massive infrastructure and economic development project that seeks to connect China with countries across Asia, Europe, and Africa. By investing in the construction of roads, railways, ports, and energy projects, China hopes to create a network of economic and trade partnerships that can drive future growth and deepen its influence around the world. The BRI is not just an economic initiative. It is also a strategic tool to extend China's political and cultural influence. By financing infrastructure projects in developing countries, China is able to create strong ties with these nations, thereby increasing its leverage in global affairs. This is particularly important in regions such as Central Asia, Southeast Asia, Africa, and Latin America, where China is seeking to build long-term relationships that will benefit both its economic interests and geopolitical ambitions. The BRI has been met with both enthusiasm and skepticism. Many countries, particularly those in the developing world, see the BRI as an opportunity to improve infrastructure, boost economic growth, and create jobs. For instance, projects such as the construction of ports and highways in Africa and South Asia have been hailed as important steps toward development. However, critics have raised concerns about the potential for debt traps. Many countries that have entered into agreements with China under the BRI have found themselves saddled with significant debt, which could lead to increased dependency on China and the risk of losing control over critical infrastructure. China's growing influence through the BRI has also raised concerns among Western countries, particularly the United States and Europe. The BRI is seen by some as a form of debt trap diplomacy, in which China provides loans to developing countries that they may struggle to repay. In exchange for these loans, China often gains control over key infrastructure, such as ports and railways, which could give China significant geopolitical leverage. Countries such as Sri Lanka, Pakistan, and the Maldives have faced significant financial challenges due to their participation in the BRI, and in some cases have had to turn over control of important assets, such as ports, to China. Despite these concerns, the BRI has been an essential part of China's strategy for asserting its influence on the global stage. It allows China to strengthen economic ties with countries around the world while simultaneously promoting Chinese companies and technology. The initiative has also provided China with the opportunity to expand its reach into strategic regions, such as the Middle East, Africa, and Europe, where it is increasingly seen as a key player in shaping the future of international trade and investment. The Belt and Road Initiative will continue to play a central role in China's foreign policy for the foreseeable future. As the project expands, China's ability to manage its relationships with participating countries, address concerns over debt sustainability, and ensure the long-term success of its infrastructure investments will be crucial in determining the BRI's ultimate impact on global geopolitics. As China has risen to global prominence, its rivalry with the United States has deepened, becoming one of the defining features of the 21st century. The U.S.-China relationship, which was once characterized by cooperation and engagement, has increasingly shifted toward competition, particularly in areas such as trade, technology, and military influence. The growing rivalry between the two nations has been described as a new Cold War, with both sides vying for global supremacy in various domains. The economic rivalry between China and the United States is perhaps the most prominent aspect of their relationship. For decades, China's economic growth has been fueled by trade with the United States, which has been one of China's largest trading partners. However, in recent years, tensions have risen over issues such as trade imbalances, intellectual property theft, and China's economic practices. The U.S. has accused China of unfair trade practices, including currency manipulation, state subsidies for domestic industries, and the forced transfer of technology from American companies to Chinese firms. In response, the Trump administration imposed tariffs on billions of dollars worth of Chinese goods, triggering a trade war that has continued into the Biden administration. In addition to trade, the U.S. and China are engaged in intense competition in the technology sector. China's technological rise has been seen as a direct challenge to the U.S.'s dominance in industries such as telecommunications, artificial intelligence, and quantum computing. Companies like Huawei and TikTok have become flashpoints in this competition, with the U.S. government accusing China of using its technology to spy on foreign governments and citizens. The U.S. has sought to limit China's access to critical technologies, such as semiconductors, and has pushed its allies to exclude Chinese companies from their 5G networks. At the same time, China has made substantial investments in homegrown technology, aiming to reduce its reliance on foreign innovations. The military rivalry between the U.S. and China has also intensified in recent years, particularly in the Asia-Pacific region. China's growing military capabilities, including its expansion of naval power, missile technology, and cyber capabilities, have led to concerns about its intentions. The U.S. has sought to strengthen its alliances with countries such as Japan, South Korea, and Australia in response to China's growing military presence. China, in turn, views the U.S. presence in the Asia-Pacific as a challenge to its sovereignty, particularly in areas like the South China Sea, where both countries have competing interests. The military competition between the two nations is likely to remain a central issue in global geopolitics, with both sides seeking to assert their dominance in the region. As the rivalry between China and the United States intensifies, the global balance of power is shifting. The outcome of this competition will shape the future of international relations, trade, and security. The two nations will need to find ways to manage their differences and avoid direct conflict, while navigating the challenges posed by their growing competition for global influence. China's rapid economic growth has not only transformed the country's international standing, but has also brought about profound changes in its social landscape. One of the most notable transformations is the rise of China's middle class, which has grown exponentially over the past few decades. This shift from a largely rural, agrarian society to a more urban, industrialized one has had significant implications for China's social structure, consumption patterns, and political landscape. The expansion of China's middle class is a direct result of the country's economic reforms and its integration into the global economy. As millions of Chinese citizens move from rural areas to cities in search of work, the government's focus on industrialization and infrastructure development created millions of jobs, particularly in urban centers. With the increase in disposable income and access to better living standards, China's middle class has become a driving force in the domestic economy. This demographic has also contributed to a rising demand for consumer goods, luxury items, and services, further fueling the country's economic growth. However, the expansion of China's middle class has also created new social tensions. As wealth has become more concentrated in urban centers, disparities between rich and poor have become more pronounced. While the urban middle class has flourished, many rural areas continue to lag behind in terms of economic development. The urban-rural divide remains one of the most significant challenges facing China today, as millions of rural residents still lack access to quality education, healthcare, and social services. Despite government efforts to reduce poverty and promote regional development, the gap between China's wealthy coastal provinces and its interior remains a source of social and political unrest. The changing social landscape is also reshaping Chinese society's values and aspirations. As the middle class has grown, so too has the desire for greater personal freedom, individual expression, and upward mobility. Young Chinese, in particular, are increasingly concerned with quality of life, career opportunities, and personal fulfillment, rather than solely focusing on ideological loyalty or collective goals. This shift has created a generation that is more open to global ideas and lifestyles, including consumerism, digital technology, and social media. However, these shifts also come with challenges, as the Communist Party grapples with how to balance economic growth with the growing demands for political reform and individual rights. While the rise of China's middle class is a success story in many ways, it also represents a new set of problems. The government must find ways to address the social inequality that persists in both rural and urban areas. Additionally, the party must navigate the tensions between economic progress and political control, especially as China's more globally connected and affluent citizens begin to question the limits of state control over their personal freedoms. The future of China's middle class will have a profound impact on the country's political and economic trajectory, as it seeks to balance growth with the expectations of a more vocal and empowered populace. One of the most pressing challenges China faces today is its rapidly aging population. After decades of one-child policies, the country now has one of the world's most rapidly aging societies, with a shrinking workforce and an increasing number of elderly citizens. The impact of this demographic shift is already being felt across multiple sectors, from healthcare and pensions to labor markets and consumer spending. By 2050, it is estimated that nearly a third of China's population will be over the age of 60, placing a significant strain on the country's social services and economy. The aging population is the result of several factors, including the one-child policy, which was implemented in 1979 and not officially relaxed until 2016. The policy, which limited most families to having only one child, dramatically reduced China's birth rate and led to a demographic imbalance. While the one-child policy helped curb population growth in the short term, it has created long-term problems as the country now faces a population that is both aging and shrinking. In response to the problem, China has abolished the one-child policy and allowed families to have up to 3 children. But the impact of these changes has been limited. Many young Chinese are hesitant to have larger families due to the high cost of living, housing, and education in urban areas. The aging population presents significant economic challenges for China. As the labor force shrinks, there will be fewer workers to support the country's vast manufacturing base and growing service sector. This could lead to a slowdown in economic growth, as the country faces a shortage of skilled labor. Furthermore, the rising number of elderly citizens will place increasing demands on China's healthcare and pension systems. The government will need to invest heavily in elder care infrastructure and expand social safety nets to meet the needs of an aging population. These demographic shifts also present challenges for China's economy, as older populations tend to consume less and save more, which could affect consumer spending patterns. The aging population also poses a political challenge to the Chinese government. While the Communist Party has been able to rely on rapid economic growth to maintain its legitimacy, the demographic shift could reduce the economic dynamism that has underpinned its rule. As the working age population shrinks and the number of elderly citizens grows, the government may struggle to meet the rising expectations of its citizens for social services and economic security. Additionally, the social and economic strain caused by the aging population could contribute to rising social unrest if the government fails to address these issues effectively. China has begun to take steps to address the challenges posed by an aging society. In addition to relaxing the one-child policy, the government has implemented a series of economic and healthcare reforms aimed at improving the quality of life for its aging population. These reforms include expanding access to elderly care services, providing financial incentives for families to have more children, and promoting policies that encourage the employment of older workers. However, these efforts will need to be scaled up significantly if China is to avoid the economic and social challenges that an aging population can bring. China's rapid industrialization over the past few decades has come at a significant environmental cost. Air pollution, water contamination, deforestation, and environmental degradation are among the most pressing issues facing the country today. China's industrial sector, which has driven the country's economic growth, has been a major contributor to the world's largest carbon emissions. Despite significant progress in green energy, renewable resources, and environmental protection, China's rapid urbanization and reliance on coal have created substantial environmental challenges that threaten the long-term sustainability of the country's development model. Air pollution is one of the most visible signs of China's environmental crisis. Cities like Beijing, Shanghai, and others in northern China experience frequent smog and hazardous air quality, which has significant health implications for millions of citizens. The government has taken steps to address this issue, including implementing stricter emissions standards for vehicles and industrial plants, and encouraging the transition to electric vehicles, EVs. The country is also investing heavily in renewable energy, particularly solar and wind power, and has become the world's largest producer of solar panels. Water pollution is another critical issue. Many of China's rivers, lakes, and groundwater sources are contaminated by industrial waste, agricultural runoff, and untreated sewage. Water scarcity is a particular concern in northern China, where water resources are already limited. The government has invested in large-scale infrastructure projects, such as the South-North Water Transfer Project, to address water shortages, but these solutions come with significant environmental and financial costs. Furthermore, the pollution of water sources continues to pose a threat to public health and food security. China has made significant commitments to address its environmental challenges. In 2020, President Xi Jinping announced that China would aim to reach carbon neutrality by 2060 and reduce carbon emissions before 2030. This ambitious pledge reflects China's recognition of the need to transition to a more sustainable, low-carbon economy. The country is already a global leader in renewable energy, particularly in solar and wind power, and is investing in electric vehicles and green infrastructure. However, the path to carbon neutrality will be challenging, particularly given China's heavy reliance on coal for energy production. The environmental crisis also poses significant challenges for China's social stability and political legitimacy. As public awareness of environmental issues grows, there's increasing pressure on the government to improve environmental standards and address the health risks associated with pollution. The government will need to balance the demands for economic growth with the need to protect the environment, ensuring that its future development is sustainable and resilient. So, what can we take away from this rich history? The moral of the story is that the rise of China isn't just a tale of economic success. It's a story of adaptability, resilience, and the pursuit of power and influence. China's journey reflects the complexities of balancing rapid growth with social and political stability, dealing with internal challenges while expanding its influence abroad. From the humbling periods of the century of humiliation to today's global leadership aspirations, China's story teaches us the power of persistence and the long-term effects of historical decisions. The world is watching closely as China continues to shape the future, both within its borders and on the world stage. If you've enjoyed this exploration of China's history, make sure to stay tuned to History Teller YT. There are plenty more captivating stories from the past that will leave you reflecting on how history continues to shape the present and the future. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more in-depth historical narratives. We look forward to bringing you the next chapter in history very soon. Stay tuned, and until next time, keep exploring the past